Hello, I'm Jacqueline London, and this is my research presentation for Diet 506. My research was on the effects of breakfast and academic performance. When doing my literature review last semester, my review did aim to determine if eating breakfast would correlate with improved test scores, grades, or academic-related skills, such as focus, attention, memory, and reading comprehension. This review did find a significant difference in academic performance and academic outcomes of students who regularly ate breakfast compared to those who skipped breakfast. So when I started my own study, my hypothesis was that an increase in frequency of breakfast would correlate with receiving higher academic scores. For methods of data collection, I did collect data on Nicholls State campus. I collected data in Galliano's Hall, which is the campus's cafeteria. A link was created to the survey as well as a QR code. This survey was hosted through Qualtrics Experience Measurements website. For those included in the survey, it included those who were 18 years or older, completion of at least one full year of college courses, access to a phone, a laptop, or tablet. They needed to have completed at least one full semester of college courses because one part of the survey asks for their last semester's ending GPA. For collection of data, I use person-to-person solicitation, which means I asked people in person to be part of my survey. It was explained to them that this survey was completely voluntary. They did not have to take part in it. There was no negative consequences if they didn't take part in this survey. And also that the survey asks about breakfast consumption, academic performance, and their grade point average. The results show that 69 students participated in taking this survey. These numbers show what percent of students were in the first, second, third, fourth year, also grad students, and it also showed what percentage of students held what GPA. As you can see here, 52% of students had a 4.0 to a 3.5 GPA. Because the majority of students fell into this category, it is possible that there is a sample bias due to students knowing that it asks about their GPA, which means students who had a higher GPA may have been more willing to participate in the study, whereas students who had a lower GPA or GPAs they weren't comfortable sharing may not have participated in the study. When asked about frequency of breakfast, students who ate breakfast 6 to 7 days per week had a higher average GPA than those who ate breakfast 5 days or less. To the side, you can see that students who ate breakfast 6 to 7 days per week had an overall GPA of 3.7, which was significantly higher than 5 days or less. It did not show a positive trend where more breakfast correlated to higher grades, but it did show that specifically 6 to 7 days correlated to higher GPAs. When asked about frequency of breakfast, this study also showed that majority of students ate breakfast 1 to 3 days per week, regardless of their average GPA. Although this does not show a correlation with breakfast, it may be something that indicates a pattern among college students. And if most college students ate 1 to 3 days per week, then this shows that there's other factors at play when considering what affects a student's overall GPA. When asked about grains, there was a positive correlation. The more frequently a student ate grains during the week, the higher their overall GPA. The highest overall GPA was found among those who had grains every day of the week with a 3.53 GPA, and the lowest GPA was found among those who never ate grains during the week during breakfast, and it was a 3.05. When asked about protein, the highest overall GPA was for those who had protein every day of the week with a 3.55 GPA. For those who had protein 6 days or less, there was no significant difference between their scores. Similarly, there was no correlation to increased dairy to an increased test scores. The highest was among those who had dairy every day with a 3.56, and the lowest was among those who never had dairy during the week with a 3.12. But they did not consistently increase with increase of dairy. Numbers did fluctuate, and I noticed no trends. Same with fruits, there was no trends, no consistency. The numbers did fluctuate. The highest GPA when asked about frequency of fruit was among those who had fruit 5 to 6 days per week with an overall GPA of a 3.48, and the lowest was among those who never had fruit in a 3.12. Vegetables is similar to the last few. There was no consistency in these trends. The numbers did fluctuate. It did not show an increase or decrease in vegetables related to an increase or decrease in GPA. I did decide to ask a question about caffeine, although it's not part of our regular food group that we would ask about because caffeine is a popular component of many college students' diet. I saw no consistent trends here. The numbers did fluctuate. I found it very interesting that there was such a jump between those who had caffeine 5 to 6 days per week and those who had caffeine every day. I did assume before this survey that those who had caffeine more often would relate to higher test scores. I assumed that having more caffeine would cause them to be more alert, more interested in class, maybe participate more, and that doesn't seem to be the case. The second half of this survey asks about academic performance in class settings. So it asks about focus in class, on exams, comprehension of lectures, ability to participate in class, as well as feelings of tiredness after skipping breakfast. When asked if skipping breakfast affects one's ability to focus in class, 49% of participants noted that they felt a decrease in their ability to focus in class. When asked about their ability to focus on exams after skipping breakfast, 46% noticed a decreased focus. This is important to note because we know that for most college courses, the majority of points come from exam grades. And so for students to do well in a class, they do need to do well in their exams. If decreased breakfast relates to decreased focus on exams, then it is a reason to promote more breakfast more often among college students. When asked about ability to participate in class after skipping breakfast, 49% noticed that there was no difference. The second highest was 39%, noting a decrease in participation. As noted before, we do want to be able to show up to class and be our best, be energized, be focused. And because they haven't eaten breakfast, it may relate to them having less energy, which will relate to less participation in class. About their ability to comprehend lectures after skipping breakfast, 46% noticed a decrease in comprehension. When asked about increased or decreased feelings of tiredness, 49% of students did note that they felt an increased feeling of tiredness. The next highest was 39%, noting no difference whether they ate breakfast or not. So it could be noted here that increased frequency of breakfast may lead to an increase in energy, but with 39% of students noticing no difference, further research should be done on this topic. When comparing frequency of breakfast to academic performance in classroom settings, it should be noted that 0 to 33% of students who eat breakfast 0 to 3 times per week experience negative effects on their ability to perform in class, and 60 to 81% of students who reported eating breakfast 4 to 7 days per week experience more negative effects in their academic performance in class. This means that those who don't usually eat breakfast have less negative effects when they skip breakfast, and those who eat breakfast as a regular part of their routine have more negative effects when they skip breakfast. So this may note that breakfast alone may not correlate with lower or higher GPA, but rather a change in one's pattern, a change in one's routine. Overall, the data collected regarding performance in class, students expressed an increased feelings of tiredness and a decreased ability to focus in class. Lack of focus and tiredness play a critical role in one's ability to absorb and understand new material, which in turn could lead to poor scores in class. Finally, students were asked why they skipped breakfast. The top 3 reasons given for a student skipping breakfast was lack of time, not hungry, lack of food available. As noted in the beginning of the study, students who ate breakfast 6 to 7 days per week had a higher average GPA than those who ate breakfast 5 days or less. Knowing that, it may be beneficial to promote more frequent breakfast among college students. With students having lack of time, promoting easy to make, quick-made breakfast ideas as well as on-the-go breakfast ideas could be beneficial. Some students not being hungry, you don't want to force people to eat if they're not hungry, but letting them know that any portion is better than no portion could be helpful. So those easy to make meals, maybe in small portions, a protein shake on the go, maybe a cup of fruit. Those are easy things that people may be able to snack on if they're not hungry enough to sit and have a meal for breakfast when they wake up. Also, lack of food available. On Nichols campus, we do have different places where students can get food, such as Mom's Pantry that has 2 different locations, as well as the Colonel Closet that gives away free milk, cheese, eggs. We can also implement more vending machines on campus in places that students frequent. This may provide a place for them to get their breakfast. In the end, the study did aim to determine if there was a correlation between frequency of skipping breakfast and academic performance. And it was found that there is a correlation. Students who ate breakfast 6 to 7 days per week showed to have grades that were 11% or higher than those who ate breakfast 5 days or less. So that means that frequency of skipping breakfast related to a decrease in test scores or overall GPA. Those who ate protein more often had greater scores. This was gradual, so any increase in protein frequency throughout the week related to higher scores and overall GPA. For those who ate grains every day, they had a higher overall GPA. So this is not, unlike protein, it was not the more you ate grains, the higher the score was, but rather if you ate grains every day, the higher the overall GPA was. Skipping breakfast affected many students' ability to perform their best in class by reducing focus, comprehension, and increased feelings of tiredness. This shows that having breakfast more frequently may improve those skills and performance abilities in class, which would in turn improve a student's academic outcomes, which would increase their overall GPA. If students normally do skip breakfast, it may not affect their ability to perform in class as it would students who usually eat breakfast. This shows that maybe breakfast alone isn't what's causing the difference in their performance in class, but rather a change in routine. 30% of students in this study noted that they skipped breakfast due to lack of food available. Providing inexpensive breakfast options and snack options on campus during morning class may be helpful to provide adequate food for students. There were limitations to this study. Limitations in the study included sample size, sample bias, self-reported grades, portion sizes, and other factors affecting students' performance. For sample size, only 69 students participated in the study. That's not a big enough sample to generalize for all college students or for all college students on Nicholls State campus. Sample bias also comes into play. As noted before, 52% of those who participated in this study had a 4.0 to a 3.5 GPA. Knowing that this study would ask about GPA, there's a chance that those who weren't comfortable sharing their GPA or who had lower GPA scores were less willing to participate in this study. Self-reporting grades was a limitation. We don't know if the grades that were reported by students were accurate or honest or true. So if further research is done, verifying those grades with the university would be helpful just to know that these are the scores that students received. When asked about different food groups, it was not asked about portion size. So although eating protein more often within a week may relate to higher academic scores, it doesn't show what amount of protein related to higher academic scores. The last limitation, and probably the most important limitation to note, is that other factors do affect one's performance in class and on their test. And it's not just if they've had breakfast, it's their sleep quality, it's the environment they're in at home, their environment in their classrooms, relationships with their peers, relationships with their teachers, as well as time committed to studying. So when considering if breakfast affects academic performance and further research, other factors should also be included in academic outcomes. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.